What's up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm doing a book review today. I'm going to talk today about The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This is the third book in the First Law Trilogy, so it's the conclusion. And it is very good. Yeah, it's really good. I've finished it maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and so I've kind of been thinking about it a lot. And more so than most of the time when I finish a series, I've got this kind of post-book depression thing going on where I just want to read more about this world. So yeah, I had to stop myself from just picking up the first book and just starting over and rereading it. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. The other thing too, the standalones. I'm going to read those as soon as I possibly can. I don't want to rush into them, so I'm gonna read a couple of things sort of in between. But I am gonna read them as soon as I can. I wanted to kind of let this settle for a little bit. But man, yeah, it's good. So, if you've been watching, I've reviewed the first 2 books, and I'll put those up here. You can go ahead and check those out if you haven't already. But the third book, it's just such a nice ending. It kind of wraps everything up, but not nicely and neatly in a way that you maybe expect or want. You don't get the hero's ending. You don't get the characters that you want to end up together. Nothing good happens really. And so, like, as a whole, this series is really just a very cynical look at the traditional kind of fantasy story. And you got your Lord of the Rings, which is very good versus evil. You know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are. And the world is orderly, and the people, can expect certain things if they do certain things, you know what I mean? But this world is not like that. People don't get what they deserve. People don't good people, bad people. There really aren't any good people. Like, you can't be a good person in this world. It's impossible. There are people who are more bad, who do selfish things and do bad things. Pretty much everyone does selfish things and bad things at some point, and some people have good reasons for that. Some people have bad reasons for that. Everyone is justifying their behavior in one way or the other, though, and even people who want to do good kind of can't because of the way that this world works. It's just, you won't survive without being a little bit ruthless. And so it takes a lot of those good versus evil assumptions that people have about fantasy and storytelling and kind of turns them on their head. And there's all these like examples of this, like like the assumption that that being king would be a great thing, and you'd be able to have agency, and you could control, and you could change society for the better, and you could kind of do what you wanted and make decisions. That's not true. And in this book you find that out. One of the characters becomes the king, and he's like a good guy. He wants to enact certain changes. He wants to do things, but he can't. I mean, he can't do anything. He can't even marry the person that he wants to, because of political, whatever going on. So he realizes that he's trapped, and he's a prisoner in his own palace. He can't really do anything or whatever without the go ahead of the people that that supposedly work for him, his advisors and the closed council and them. So that's an interesting one. The idea that you can fight for peace, and that if you defeat the enemy, that things will get better. Logan is this is what he wants to do. He's got scores to settle in the north with Bethid and them, and he goes and fights them. And his expectation is that if he defeats Bethid in the north, then he can, I don't know, retire or whatever. He wants to like settle down, and he talks with Dogman about growing things, like growing, like whatever, I don't know, starting a farm or something. It's very, he's got this dream that he can stop living a life of a warrior. He can stop having to be a violent person. But that obviously is not the case. It doesn't happen. As soon as he defeats Bethid, it's just another enemy there's just another person that he's going to have to fight. And peace never really comes. It never happens. Because, spoiler here, after he kills Bethid, they name him King of the Northmen, right? And he's got a lot of people in the north that don't like him. He's done a lot of bad things to a lot of people, and he's trying to be a better person, or at least he claims he is. But he's got to watch over his back all the time, and he's got enemies, and it just doesn't ever stop for him. So yeah, that idea that you can defeat an enemy and then go from being a violent person to being a peaceful person it's just not, at least in this universe, not really in the cards. And then another idea that this book kind of flips on its head is that heroes get glory and fame and all this stuff. The heroes, what really happens to heroes in this story is they are disfigured and emotionally, physically damaged. And some of them maybe rise to be generals or whatever, but most of them either don't survive very long, or they so the example that I'm thinking of is Glokta. He's a war hero. He was I don't know what his rank was in the army when he was in the First Turkish War, but he was, commander. He was fighting, and he was heroic, and he had all these things that people. He had a future ahead of him in the army, and he was captured and tortured and disfigured and came back broken, and yeah. They don't treat veterans very well, so they didn't want to see him. They didn't want to look at him. They didn't want to have that reminder of the sacrifice that he made for the country. So they gave him a shitty job and kind of swept him under the rug. And his life sucks. But he's one of my favorite characters in the story. And the same thing kind of happens to Colin West. At least sort of, not maybe to quite the degree, but he's a general. He is promoted all the way up to the Lord Marshal when Marshal Burr dies, and so he's commanding like the whole army. But and he's fighting the war and blah 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 blah, and he's injured. He ends up getting sick after. And presumably dying. They don't say expressly in the book. Again, this is spoilery. So if you haven't read it, go read it. But and no one really seems to mind that. Someone else will just take his place, and that's fine. There's more wars to be fought. So, yeah. Heroes don't really get any glory. Not until they're dead. And so, I don't know. Anyway, the series is kind of just very cynical, and it's good. It's real, and it is tragic, and all of these characters are so believable and well drawn and awesome. Like, I don't want to be friends with any of them, but I felt like I knew them and that they were real people. That's what this story does really, really well. And yeah, it's just really good. So, series as a whole, I give it a 4.5 out of 10. Out of 5, I guess, actually, is what I meant. 4.5 out of 5. And this particular one, I think, is probably tied with the second book. The second book I really enjoyed too. Tied. Yeah, and in fact, so if I could go back, I would recommend too to just read this 1, 2, 3 all the way through as if it's one book, because it's kind of written that way. Like it just like the first book ends and the second book just goes right from there, and then the same with this one. And I didn't do that when I read it, but I wish I had. I did read I took a break between the first book and the second book. I did not between the second book and third book. I just powered through. So that's how I recommend you guys do it. But yeah, it's good. And like I said, I'm going to get to the standalones here pretty soon. But yeah, in conclusion, it's great. And it's a really just gritty look at fantasy, and I think it's an important fantasy book. Yeah, it's a thinker. It made me think. So anyway, that's all I have to say about this. If you guys have read the book or have anything else you'd like to add, please comment below. I will keep you updated on my progress through the rest of the standalones, and then my plan is to read A Little Hatred, and then I think the new book is supposed to come out in like September. I don't know if I'll catch up before that or not, but if I do, I'll read it once I get to that. But anyway, that's all I got for you. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe if you like what I'm doing here, and if you want to keep seeing me make videos and things. Yeah, let's talk about books. Go ahead and comment with whatever. And then, yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.